It's more about not having somebody else's structure dropped on top of you. Most pagans are quite resistant to authority and don't really like being told what to do. But at the same time, you kind of need some framework to work with. So what started out as a let's be a bit academic about this kind of book turned into this wild experimental process. And I kind of wrote the two in the same jacket and hope for the best. So it's an odd little thing. There's so much Druid history is ridiculous, particularly the modern end. They're all bonkers, they're all mad. It takes a bit of practice. So if you do it, you get better, even if you're not great when you start. And it's okay not to be great when you start. Why should we expect to be perfect at everything up front? So you get guys at events who will run in their jetpacks and race with their jetpacks along the ground because that's all you can do with a jetpack. It's beautiful nonsense and a lot of good fun.
Hello and welcome to the Pagan Portal Podcast, produced by Moonbooks Publishing and presented by me, Rachel Patterson. Very pleased to welcome today author, druid, folk musician, and totally bonkers imagination, Nimue Brown. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes. There will be squids and octopus and all sorts of things today. I love it. I wish I even had a small percentage of your imagination. It is totally bonkers and I love it. Squid aside or included, depending on how you feel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm on the druid path that I started studying with Obod, something terrifying me like 20 years ago. I know, how did this happen? My whole experience of Druidry started the year my son was born. So I kind of measure my druid path in my child, and it's very tall now. Very old. But I come from a folk background. I'm the third generation of my family to be doing folk music. My mother and grandmother were doing it during the folk revival. I've raised a folk child. So that whole storytelling, and stories in the landscape and all of that was kind of with me from very early on. I was exposed to the Mavinogian at a quite a formative period. So by the time I actually came to the druid path, it was an exercise in going, oh gosh, this is all very familiar. Why didn't they do this way? And ran into Dave the Bard at Clan and had a bit of a revelation because there he was singing about all the things that I thought were interesting. Right, who are these people and where do I sign up? So, yeah, and then I spent 20 odd years at this point poking around in contemporary druidry and doing philosophy and writing about it.
Fantastic. What a background to be brought up in. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were dabbling in Wicca when I was a child, so I got exposed to the contemporary paganism fairly early on as well. And yeah.
No escape, really.
Right.
The foundation was set. Druid is kind of your primary, I would say. Is that how you would refer to yourself?
I have phases of being comfortable going, yes, I'm a druid, and larger phases of going, I'm on the druid path, I'm studying druidry, because it's not quite as pressured, it's a big word. Bard path as well, very much. Just ties in with everything else that I do.
I think we have these labels, don't we? We have these little boxes that everyone likes to put us in, and paganism and spiritualism, whatever label you want to give it, it's not that straightforward, is it?
Never. I think they're mostly useful as ways of finding other people who've got kind of similar things going on, because I tend to find that other Bard path, druid path people are intrinsically very interesting to me. These are the people I want to connect with, therefore it's good and useful able to use. Pagans generally are very cool, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's good for finding people, but I think that's really about it.
I think we draw them sometimes, don't we? We do find ourselves accidentally in the right group of people.
Yeah, that can be fun. You look around and go, hang on a minute. But yeah, the wonderful connections and coincidences and serendipities that sometimes just drop a person in the right place are rather wonderful. Again, for me, one of my key moments was in a folk club when a gentleman said, sing us one of your druid songs. And I went, I don't know, what did druids sing? I sang Oak Ash and Thorn, which was apparently about rock, but at that point, I hadn't met any druids. I didn't really know. It made me very alert when druids went by. What's he druid? I should probably ask.
perfect song though, but nailed it.
Well, I was a drive-all fact, really.
Now, you have a lot of books under your wings or tentacles. Now, one of the first books of yours I read was Spirituality Without Structure, and it made so much sense to me. It really resonated to me. Inspiration on writing that one, or thoughts on the subject?
Alan de Botton's Religion for Atheists, which I heartily recommend. It's a fascinating little book looking at functionally what it is that religion give people, that if you're maybe not doing religion, you're going to be horribly short of. And I thought, he's onto a thing here, and we could pull this back right the other way. Because there are an awful lot of own past people out there trying to figure out their things from scratch, and actually, not reinventing the wheel has got a certain amount of chance. So yeah, that's kind of where I started with that one, and then kind of think, well, what do you need? What's helpful? What kind of core stuff do you need to figure out in the go doing? And I think to some degree, most pagans are going a delay, even if they're kind of borrowing a tradition or studying something. In the end, you're kind of making up your own way of doing things because you have to. It's what else makes sense.
So the actual subject of the book, can you tell the listeners what you mean by spirituality without structure?
Well, it's more about not having somebody else's structure dropped on top of you. Because
yes.
Most pagans are quite resistant to authority and don't really like being told what to do. But at the same time, you kind of need some framework to work with, or it's just chaos. So how do you build? I mean, really, the title should be "How do you build the structures that you actually need yourself?" But that's rather impractical.
A little bit, not so catchy.
But yeah, finding your own path is, I think, the subtitle on that one, which is probably the more pertinent bit, to be honest.
I think that's what captured me because, like you say, we all walk a slightly different path, and we do like to rebel. We don't like being told. Definitely don't like being told what to do. But I think that's the nice thing about the big old paganism umbrella, is that you can take the bits that work for you and make a kind of jigsaw of your own pathway.
Absolutely. And if no way out there is doing it the way you want to do it, go, right, well, I shall start a thing. It's actually where almost everything we've got came from anyway, and then people will turn up and go, oh, me too. And maybe they won't, but it's
so we could all be our own cult leaders. Now, another book of yours that I loved, When Pagans Pray. And I think I love the book because of the content, but also because the word prayer seems to scare off an awful lot of pagans, and I think it's very misunderstood. What was your prompt on that, and your ideas on
exactly what you're saying there? That it's a topic that a lot of people find uneasy or very Christian associated. So I started out with this quite serious, sensible project where I was going to explore prayer in different religions and maybe write something, a bit on the intellectual side. And I got a little way into this, and I thought, there are things here I don't get, and I'm not going to get them unless I try and do them. Which has I have a very ambivalent relationship with deity and belief, and I've wandered in and out of all kinds of states of not knowing and not being sure about things, and being a bit on the agnostic side is not a great place to start a prayer practice from. But I ran into some very interesting, I think it was Buddhist content, talking about how you can pray to anything, you can pray to anyone, that it doesn't have to be kind of God orientated, that you can just sit down and talk to the universe. And I'm going, okay, well, I'm pretty confident the universe exists. I can start from here. Hello, universe, just showing up, what have we got? And it was a very strange process of making time for this without having a strong belief to underpin it or anyone I was particularly addressing it to. But it had a huge effect on me. I was really surprised because when I started it, I was in a very rough period for mental health. I was waking up into panic attacks pretty much as normal every day, and I've been doing that for a long time. And during the process of just showing up and going, hello, universe, I'm here for chat, anyone want to talk? My body called back. And I stopped waking into panic attacks, and it was really the only thing that significantly changed in that time frame. And I thought, okay, there is something in this. And what exactly how that works, I could not begin to explain, but it is definitely worth exploring as a practice, with or without belief that it definitely gets something done. And I find that really interesting. So what started out as a let's be a bit academic about this kind of book turned into this wild experimental process, and I kind of wrote the two in the same jacket and hope for the best. So it's an odd little thing, but a few people have found it useful. So that's
even I work a lot with deity, I work a lot with the old gods, but I still refer to the universe on a regular basis because it is there, isn't it? It is, and let's face it, even as a witch, I work lots of spells, I work lots of magic, I call on deity, I call on energies. But ultimately, if the universe has a different thought, it's going to interfere.
Yes.
No matter what you put out there, the universe has its own ideas.
Yeah, and it's trying to meet it in whatever way makes sense. I think it's just a work in progress forever, really.
I think it is whatever religion, faith you have, if you're putting words out there to another being, to the universe, it is a prayer, isn't it? A witch's spell is ultimately a prayer, isn't it? And I think we get a bit hung up on that word, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite how you draw the line between spell and prayer, and I'm not even sure it's useful to try a little bit tonight, but there you go.
I think it's words, isn't it? You're asking for something. You're asking a higher power for something. Yeah. Which is essentially a prayer, isn't it?
It is. Although, I mean, I think that's the form of prayer people get most hung up on, but there's a lot of other interesting things to do with it. And when I got into sort of exploring what other traditions do around not simply asking for stuff, it's really fascinating. And what happens when you're asking more for sort of contact or experience, or praying as an expression of gratitude, or as a way of kind of aligning with something else. And I think a lot of, and I know it comes up around like Hecate with the multiple names and the repeating those epitaphs as a sort of a way of almost aligning energetically with the idea of deity, and that prayer can be a way of doing that. It's fascinating. It's not stuff that I do particularly, that I'm intrigued by it.
I think we're always learning, aren't we? I think you're open to things, so you're always learning. It'd be boring if we stopped learning.
No, can't be doing that.
Yeah, it is. And I think there seems to be this trend at the moment of manifesting. Every course I see, every book I see is manifesting. But you mentioned gratitude, and I think that is really important, to have that balance of not just keep asking for stuff.
It's actually something that Sheena Kundi was talking about in her Riches for Witches book, that if you start with the gratitude practice, if you start by looking at the riches you've already got, then you can discover that you've got an awful lot more riches than you thought you did, and it's a very good idea. And it does bring a lot in so many ways. And even when life is shitty and difficult and challenging, there's usually something good if you're prepared to look for it, and it makes so much difference.
Yes. The fact that you are still breathing is always a bonus to kind of hang on to.
You've been very well breathing this last couple of weeks where it's been hard work. Oh, breathing's great. Don't underestimate.
No, never underestimate that. But it is, isn't it? It's going back to the basics, maybe, the basic things that keep you alive, that you need to keep you alive, and being thankful for them.
Yeah.
Such a materialistic world, isn't it?
Yeah, but to take that materialism into a kind of an embodied, appreciative, I'm here in the skin, rain is wonderful, sun is wonderful, food is wonderful, and just being able to show up to those most basic things. It's such a good antidote to buy this and buy another one, and a shinier plastic. You're just coming down to that very, that simple, that mammal body. What does the animal body do? There's a lot of wisdom in what our mammal selves actually want, rather than what we tell each other.
Yeah, good book. Both good books. Definitely both good books. Both very useful. I like looking at things from different perspectives, which you have an absolute genius at doing.
I like things from a different perspective. So, how you might go from another angle is just always fascinating to me.
Yeah, definitely. So you've also got a book on Druidry and the ancestors, another fascinating one. What was the inspiration for that one?
Oh, well, no, there was a period of time, about 6 months, when with my son and I in the mix, 8 out of the 9 last generations of my family had all lived in this one house, which was incredible. We don't get opportunities to do that very often. It was an old forge. It was single glazed, falling apart, unspeakably cold. There were bats in it. It was bonkers, but there was all this family story and history and a bit of haunting the freebie sucking was very much present. It found me very entertaining. So that was interesting. And all the stories coming up from local people who knew, family members that I'd never known, and it wasn't part of my family I'd even engaged with that much before. Long, complicated story, but it was a really deep immersion into this particular line of my ancestors, and it just really got me thinking about ancestral stories and how we connect to history. And I'd read Ronald Hutton's Blood and Mistletoe, which in terms of how we think about the history of Druidry doesn't really pull any punches. And how do I respond to this? What do I do with this? And it took me in 2 directions. And one of them was to write Druidry and the ancestors, and the other was to write intelligent designing for amateurs. But there we go. It was utterly ridiculous. But so much Druid history is ridiculous, particularly the modern end. They're all bonkers. They're all mad. Slow motion chases with Druids on traction engine suddenly doesn't seem that ridiculous.
That's just an everyday occurrence, isn't it? I don't.
Wildly inappropriate. Anyway. So yeah. So those were kind of the different influences operating on me when I sort of sat down to look at that. But it's about storytelling and how history is a story. And history absolutely. It changes all the time, and how we write our own history, what kind of national narratives we're plugged into, what history we ignore, what gets erased. There's so much that kind of shapes how we think without us even noticing. So it seemed like fertile territory to poke around. It's an interesting process to it.
I think stories wind their way through your writing, don't they? Because you have ventured into the world of fiction a lot as well, and with Intelligent Designing for Amateurs, which is one of the most bonkers books I've ever read. But it is wonderfully bonkers. It is one of those books where it makes your mind explode. It is brilliantly, but fiction, I do take my top hat, obviously, off to you for writing fiction, because I think it is incredibly difficult. What was it that the Druidry stories that took you into writing fiction, or was it something else?
Oh, it all goes way back. My grandmother was something of a storyteller. My father's a writer as well. So the notion that you could was there from very early on for me. Deeply affected by Alan Gardner as a child and the Mabinogion and his relationship with that text. The owl service landed hard with me. So I'd started writing pretty much as soon as I could hold a pencil. Poetry first, and then increasingly long stories. I think it's a particularly effective way of communicating with people. I really love writing nonfiction, and I find it really interesting. But if you want to get into somebody's head and get them to take stuff on board, actually stories are often a more effective way of doing it. And they're great for sort of showing possibilities and what could be in different ways of thinking about things. I think if you get very bogged down in like what we have now is the only way of doing stuff, within like could have been, and the future is sort of laid out before us in an ominously straight line. But if you come at it with stories, you can persuade people of more possibilities, and that can go the most amazing places. Apparently there's an awful lot of people go on to study physics simply because of lightsabers.
I can understand that.
Well, it's attractive, and it's like, well, could I? and then you're off. And then, it makes people consider things. And my God, how many people came to witchcraft because of Terry Pratchett? I mean,
all hail Terry Pratchett. Yes.
When he started, there wasn't much out there that was actually useful. There were very few books. I think there were a lot of people who were sort of teenagers about the same time as me, whom that was genuinely the best information you could get your hands on, because he got something that,
he understood it, didn't he? He understood witches and magic and human beings.
Yes. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, definitely he was a genius, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So the story for intelligent designing for amateurs, the inspiration for that, did it?
A slight following on the pattern. I was just sort of drawing in all kinds of different elements from what I was seeing in the actual steampunk community, different things that appealed to people, things that I thought were funny. It largely was me snatching things out of the ether and going, well, that will be funny. But it's actually surprisingly difficult to make up things that are more bonkers than the actual Victorians. I mean, I've got what were in Gardens in Search of Archaeology in there, and that's like, I didn't really make that up. That's what they did. There are a lot of Victorian digs with just people with big houses going, let's dig up the lawn. Maybe we've got a temple there. Or the first sometimes they do, I mean, like the Loden's temple at Lydney is one of them. And all the ridiculousness and the crazy things that people were trying to make and do and thought were possible. And it's such a bonkers period that it's actually hard to be more silly. It's the wrong thing. So
I do love it. They had a fascination for everything, though, didn't they? The occult and dinosaurs, and I mean the stories of them sticking together whale bones and creating sea monsters, charging sixpence for people to come and look at it. Yeah, they loved it all.
Just phenomenal. I would love to go and see the ones in London. That's very much on my wish list. The Alec Bristol Park model dinosaurs are just completely wrong. I'd love to. It's wonderful stuff. And such an incredibly creative period. I mean, an incredibly problematic period as well. There's so much that's bad and wrong and needs questioning. And it kind of did all at the same time.
But they did, didn't they? They had a quest for knowledge, I guess.
Well,
it seems to be if they couldn't find the answer, they made it up. But
that's what we do.
Yeah.
What people?
No, definitely. I did. The book is brilliant. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned steampunk, and that does feature in the book. I love the steampunk idea. More bonkers.
No.
Was it that the idea of how ridiculous it all was that drew you to the steampunk idea?
It was one of those strange processes of finding that I kind of fitted anyway. I did a lot of Victorian literature when I was doing my English degree. I was just interested in the period. So that was kind of a bit of an entry drug. And particularly that 1890s with Frankenstein and Dracula and all that kind of formative Gothic stuff as well. So it all comes out of the same place. I was on YouTube back in the days when YouTube was tiny and, a very modest number of videos on it. And I was looking for, Obod had allegedly put up a video like The Elements, and I was trying to find it. And YouTube showed me Professor Elemental Cup of Brown Joy. And I went, what is this and how do I get one? And I've basically been stalking him ever since. But that was my entry point. So it was, again, one of those weird serendipity moments. So Druidry kind of brought me to all of that in a very surreal way. But once I need to look for it and started finding out about what he was doing, and there's like this whole scene, and just sort of got in where I could, and it's been great fun. Wonderful people, completely bonkers.
Which is always good. And for any listeners that aren't aware what steampunk is, how would you describe it?
Primarily, it's a social group. It's people who like being creative and dressing outrageously and having fun. And there's music and there's books and there's that crazy device making that doesn't work. But, so you get guys at events who will run in their jetpacks and race with their jetpacks along the ground because that's all you can do with a jetpack. And it's beautiful nonsense and a lot of good fun. And yeah, it's really good space to be.
It does focus a lot on the Victorians, doesn't it? But it brings mechanical idea together with it as well. And Jules Verne that's the one I go to first when I think of steampunk.
Absolutely. I mean, I read him as a child, so a big deal for me. I think it started with that interest in Victorian aesthetics and Victorian literature and science fiction. But to be honest, it is absolutely its own thing at this point. It's the aesthetics that the Victorians would faint over. There's plenty of the punk element in it. It's quite diverse in terms of how people present. It's very gender, whatever the hell you like, which I very much like about it. People do what makes them happy. Beards and dresses are absolutely a thing sometimes. Girls with moustaches and all the rest of it. So I like that side of it a lot.
I'd love a waxed moustache with the big curly up one. Oh, that would be perfect.
I painted them all on the page and I think, it's good fun.
I do have moustache envy for the big waxed moustaches.
Yeah. Quite a thing. Wow.
Mind you, the older I get, I'll probably be able to grow my own. So
I'm working on it. But,
yeah. No, I think it is. The aesthetics of it are amazing. But the whole idea behind it of just doing whatever you want and having fun. We could all do with a bit more of that, couldn't we?
Absolutely. It's a really kind of nourishing space, and just being able to be joyfully ridiculous with some other people. It's great stuff. And the music seems
yes, because there's a whole, it's not just the outfits and having a bit of a laugh, is it? There's a whole kind of culture with it as well,
there's loads of different things going on. I mean, the music's particularly big. And there's some wonderful acts. You show up at Steampunk and other places. I mean, it all overlaps into like the fairy communities and all kinds of things, and people rubbing shoulders. Yeah.
I get to wear a top hat. I love an excuse to wear a top hat.
Yeah.
Now, you have a secret order of steampunk druids. What's that all about?
So, I was at a gig in Lincoln where Professor Elemental announced from the stage that he wanted to be the leader of the cult, and ideally he wanted to be Lord of Summerisle. And I said, bear with me and I will sort this out for you. The order of steampunk druids exists. It's not very secret. It's absolutely not ordinary. People sign up when they feel like it and do what they do. We keep going, it'd be great to meet up and actually do something, but that's apparently more organised than anyone has managed in the 10 years since I said let's do it. Yeah, and all sorts of people have announced themselves members, so it's all a giggle. We've never really done anything with the Lord Summerisle bit, and Paul keeps talking about he should do something Wickermanish, but again, we haven't quite got there, but one day.
I recommend people look up Professor Elemental. He's definitely entertainment personified.
Yeah, and he's so heartwarming and just an antidote to all the rubbish in the world. He's such a good human. He'll make you feel better.
Now, another string to your bow is Hopeless Maine. What's that all about?
Okay, so that's a graphic novel series for which I did the writing and towards the end some of the colouring. It's kind of a gothic setting, weird and full of tentacles, but it's become more of a community project, which is great because other people have seen it and go, oh, I fancy a bit of that. So lots of people write for it. Sometimes we go out and do more performance-y things. We used to have a singing side that did kind of folk related to the island, but I'm not doing that at the moment. So yeah, it's this massive sprawling community project for people who like tentacles and comedy horror, and it's good fun. I play with it quite a lot. I've roped a lot of my family into this point. In it, my father does a story every Tuesday, and he's been an absolute stalwart in populating the blog with us. And I've got my fabulous offspring doing Weasel Grease Wednesdays, where I can get on social media and make strange assertions about science of Hopeless Maine, and it's hysterical.
So he's following in your footsteps then?
Apparently, people will help him.
Now, we briefly mentioned music and singing. You play the viola, I believe?
I play viola for Jessica Law. I'm one of her outlaws. So, again, if people aren't familiar with her, look her up on YouTube. She does a lot of mythologically informed material. angry women in the sea. It's particularly mermaids, sirens, other beings in the sea who are angry. Yeah, she's great fun, and I've been working with her for more than a year at this point, actually, engaging and stuff. So that's fun. I just got back into playing violin, having been stuck with a shoulder injury. I got a compression injury from a very large cat who spent his last winter on my shoulder and just crushed my shoulder blade so I couldn't play anymore. But this year, I've got the violin back. I can get around it, which has been very exciting. So I'm currently playing a bit with my partner, Keith, and I'm playing a little bit with a band called Swing Rioters, who are a lot of fun. And I've also, because clearly that's 3 projects signed enough, I've got a little outfit that sings locally called Carnival of Cryptids, and that's kind of a community choir, only with far less organising. So it's a bit anarchic. And we do like local fairy events and you dress up and stuff. So and that again, it's another excuse to stick a ridiculous hat on and get the antlers out.
Which everyone should do on the weekend.
Absolutely. and getting out in the streets of Gloucester with the antlers on and all the rest of it, just bemusing normal people, which I think it's really good for.
I have seen some of the photos. I can confirm. The songs that you sing, do you write your own songs? Is it a lot of it your own stuff?
Sometimes. I mean, again, I grew up in the folk tradition, so I sing quite a lot of traditional material. I do pick up things from singer-songwriters. Obviously, I sing for Dave stuff because listen to the bard is it's necessary. Jessica's a songwriter, so and actually so is Keith, so we do quite a lot of their material. I do write songs sometimes. Usually, if there's one that's needed for something and I can't find something to steal, I'll just knuckle down and try and write something of the job. But it's not what my brain tends to default to. If I'm writing, I'm more likely to think in terms of poems or stories, just where my head goes. So.
I think folk stories, folk songs, we can learn a lot from too, can't we? They are enjoyable, obviously, but I think there's a lot of knowledge to be found in them too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folk magic that's caught up in that, and obviously that kind of, if you want to connect with the ancestors, singing their songs is a really easy way to kind of get to know them and make them real in your life. That's definitely it. I love stories connected with the landscape, so that's something that I'm passionate by, and I live in a very story-rich landscape, which helps. And there's a lot of history and folklore activities that she's great. I also find it really interesting kind of going to places and singing the songs that are associated with the place, if I can get away without bothering anyone too much. And that can be really interesting just as a way of connecting with the landscape. And I was up on Hadrian's Wall earlier in the year, and I've got some Northumberland songs, and I've got some Leyland songs, and obviously not from the actual Leylands, but stuff written about it. And to take that into the place where it's relevant, it's just a really interesting way of making those connections. It's a very weird, but it's definitely worth exploring. And most places have some local songs or some local stories, but it's available.
I think it's important. I think it's important wherever you live to find out your local stories and history. Yeah. It's connection, isn't it? It's about connecting to the land that you live on.
Yeah, and the feeling of belonging that comes from kind of having those feelings in you and being in the land that they're in. It's a very particular kind of magic, but I think it's an important thing to have.
Not that I'm going to sing, because that would scare people off. Not one of my talents.
I've done a lot of voice workshops over the years at events. I've run a lot of singing groups and singing spaces. Every time I do it, I have this conversation with somebody who says, I can't. I've been told I can't. I shouldn't. 2 people in my entire life, I genuinely would have said, honestly, maybe not. But most people can't sing, and have just been told that they shouldn't, and usually told when they were kids, which is ridiculous because children don't know how to do stuff. Number of guys who've been told as teenagers, it's like, no, things happen to guys when they're teenagers. If they can't sing, they don't think at all. Most people can sing, and it's a wonderful, joyful thing. And it doesn't matter if you're not very good, because there's always sea shanties and punk anyway. Sing, do it. Don't.
Yes. If anyone signed me, I would be a Malcolm McLaren, Sid Vicious. Yeah, that would be my voice range.
Yeah, right. That's that sort of thing. No. I mean, chanters are a significant percent enthusiastic yelling, and there's always just the guy who makes the whoa noise at the right moment. So the true
I could probably manage that.
And there's big to do, and I think it's such an emotionally liberating, soulful thing to be able to put your voice into the world. So I spend a lot of time going to people. No, have a go, come along, sing in the bath, sing to the strings. It's all good. Trust it. It's and it's one of those things. It takes a bit of practice. So if you do it, you get better, even if you're not great when you start. And it's okay not to be great when you start, because why should we expect to be perfect at everything up front? I think there's a lot of things to be said about how people are taught, and particularly if you're working class, if you're not naturally brilliant, no one will encourage you. You're just told it's not for you. It's like, you give people lessons and an opportunity, and they get to be good at things. It's like magic. I think we're back to the modern world where everybody wants things instantly. Yeah,
and so you've got to. I can't sing because it's not instant.
Yeah, but you absolutely could. 10,000 hours on anything will make most people an expert on the thing. It's a lot of investment, but at the same time, almost anything is possible if you're prepared to do that much work. And it's not unthinkable, and it's never too late to start.
I think I might be your number 3. I think I might be your lost cause.
No, I've seen the idea. You can mull it at your leisure. But I've got people singing with me at the moment who never really sang in public before, or sang out, who are getting into leading things. And it's just practice. It's just showing up and doing it. It's like everything, really.
I think that's the thing in itself, though, isn't it? You stand in the middle of a high street and sing. That's amazing. That takes a lot of gumption to do something like that.
Honestly, asking, but if you can do that, you can do anything. Nothing's intimidating after that, not really. And if somebody makes the space, if somebody is ridiculous enough to just show up and start, it becomes easier to join in.
It's getting the smiles, isn't it? Getting the reaction, getting the positivity. Fabulous.
And just, people discovering that they can, because once you get going and you realise that you can make it work, it's all quite exciting. And just having the space and the opportunity, I think, often the permission, somebody else going, no, it's right, we can do this, we can have a go, we can do the things. And that makes it easier, it makes it like, yeah.
Brilliant.
That's what I'm really invested in.
So any new projects that you're working on, anything exciting that's coming up?
Hopefully this week I'm going to sit down and record a talk for PF Scotland, who are doing an online festival as well as their physical conference. So I have done their physical conference. It's a long way from here. So quite nice to do the distance this time. So that's probably the next big job on the horizon. And I'm writing all the time. I put things on Druidry, the blog, most days. And I've been dabbling with doing little books and just sticking them out on copy for people to help themselves too, because I appreciate a lot of people are stuck financially at the moment, and that just being all have a book is nice. And I've got a bit of Patreon support, so that makes that more realistic. And it means also that I can get into funny little niche topics that, they wouldn't really work for moon books because they're, like going to be a couple of hundred people want to read them. But I still want to write them, and I want to do that in people who read. Yeah, so I'm talking about Spirits of Place for PF Scotland, or I've been exploring.
One of my favourite subjects.
It's been one of those where the process of writing has made me kind of really look at my own practice. But it's very much central to what I do. And I hadn't really appreciated that. I think it's quite easy to get distracted by the big shiny outdated stuff, which I don't do. And go, well, that's what pagans do, and I'm over here being weird and awkward. But actually engaging with the land and what's in the land, stories, entities, physical beings, landscape, all of that is kind of where my Druidry is. It's been a really interesting consolidating process for me to sort of investigate my own practice. And I find writing's often really helpful in that regard. That the process of trying to figure out what I do so that I can explain it, I learn some things about what I do, and that what goes in.
I think no matter how many years you've been on the path, it's good sometimes to stop and go back to the basics or examine what you're doing and how you're doing it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I try and do regular check-ins where I'll sort of sit down and go, okay, what does my Druidry look like at the moment? What's most important for me? Which bits am I focused on? Because it's a wide, sprawly path with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just where my focus is there, it's that, wide path to keep coming back to that, environmental stuff, youth service and justice, all kinds of, the philosophical stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to explore, and I think it's really important to kind of take the time to reflect on where you are, not in a progress sort of sense, but just a what am I interested in at the moment? What's working for me? What's maybe something I'm doing out of habit and not because it's meaningful anymore, and just being alert to that and sort of. But
we change, don't we? Our lives change, we change, times change. It's all got to be fluid, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah, and what makes sense at one point in your life won't necessarily.
No. No, when you look back and think, oh, did I really do that at the beginning? Yeah. No. Anything else to add? Otherwise, we will leave you be and let you go have a little curl up in the corner.
We're very easy to find online and extremely Googleable, which is helpful. Druidry the blog is the main kind of focus of what I do, but I've got stuff on YouTube and I pop up other places. I'm looking for more talks because I love going to events. I'll be doing an event in Cambridge next year, talking at my local area event in September. I'm very open to suggestion. And also there's obviously this Digestible in the Outdoors, which I encourage people to check out. Book and swear fun. And we'll come with singing songs about just strange supernatural.
It has been fascinating. Thank you. I discovered tentacles and all sorts of bizarre things when I first started reading your work. It opened up a whole new world to me. And I have a print of a dinosaur with a cup of tea and a chocolate bourbon biscuit.
You used the program cover for the Steampunk at the Silent thing one year.
It was perfect. My son loved dinosaurs and chocolate bourbon biscuits, so it was the perfect combination.
It was lovely. Yeah, I love that kind of silliness and playfulness, and I'm always looking for more ways to cause mischief, basically.
It is a bonkers world, and I absolutely love it. And it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to the listeners and watchers, and we will see you again next time on the Pagan Portal Podcast.
You have been listening to the Pagan Portal Podcast, a Moonbooks Publishing production. For more information, please visit our website.